Okay, so in this video I thought maybe I would go over some of the tools in Photoshop, not Lightroom, but Photoshop, so that you can get an idea of what the tools do and how to easily use them. So I went ahead and pulled up an image so that we can play around with it and just be able to use the tools and get to know them. So we'll start at the top over here. So these are the basic tools over here that come stock on Photoshop. The top tool is just the adjustment tool. If I had multiple layers over here, I could move them around. With this, it's just the moving tool. This is just one background layer, so it's not going to let me move anything with it. But maybe when we get a little further in, I can show you how to use that. This is a selection tool, and so I can select my image, my full image. I can select part of her. I can select just her, like that. I can select just her face. This is if I wanted to, Control C. I could copy and move it to another place, if I wanted to do that. So it's just a selection tool on how what to do, how to use it if you're trying to select to move it elsewhere. If I go to my moving tool, now that I have her selected, I could cut her out. But it's not a cropping tool, it's just a selection tool. Anytime you make any changes to the image that you don't like, you can just go back by pressing Control or Command Z, like so. If I have I'm using the selection tool, and I have her selected, but I don't like the selection, I can Control Z and clear it out. If you notice that this tool has a small little arrow right here in the lower right hand corner of this the box. If you press and hold down that, then I can change it to an elliptical marquee tool, which would then make it a round selection tool. And again, you can use my arrows and move that around. This is a patch tool, and I use this probably the most out of all the tools that are on here. This one in the brush tool. So this is, let me zoom in a little bit here so you can get an idea. So we're going to grab that patch tool, and this is a healing tool that we can use, and the best way that I can show you how to do it is, see these sticks on the ground here? We're going to circle them with our patch tool, and I'm going to take that selection and drag it to another area that maybe doesn't have any sticks, and let go. And it heals that spot, and you can kind of see it got to get a little blurry there, so I'm going to fix it. And then all these little things here, we just circle it and drag it off. Circle it, drag it off, and they disappear. And it's the best way to just quickly clean up an image without any headache. Now if I got really close to the blanket part of it and I dragged it, that was not a good example because it actually worked really well, but I'll take some of the handle. You can kind of see that I get this really weird fuzziness to it, and we don't want that. So we're going to do Control Z, Control Z and get that out of here. And I'm just going to clean up all these little spots around here on the cement and whatnot. So, okay, and that looks good. If I click on this hand here, if I double tap, it takes me back to the full image. So this is a quick selection tool. So when you get into copying and pasting, duplicating things, implanting parts of images into others, you can use this quick selection tool to do that, and it makes it really easy. Let me again zoom in on baby girl here. Go back to my magic wand is what it looks like, and just start clicking around, and you can see that it starts to automatically pick up pixels that look about the same. So I reset here, and I'm just going to start, yep, there we go. And even like, see on her headband, she's got some parts here that it's more opaque of her headband. And if it reads those, you know, as being a different color. It's got different little tiny dots in here that we're selecting. Bring that down here. Select this part here. I mean, you could really get in here and get detailed. Come in really, really close here and make those changes. See how right here, it's got part of the headband, and there's part of her forehead in here. So we can go over here and we can subtract from the selection right there if we wanted to. And I've just subtracted it all, but that's okay. Here. Let me go back in there, and I can go in and magic wand, subtract just that area. But see how it's just like where you can't really, you gotta play with it quite a bit to get it exactly the way you want it. And because it's reading that area as the same temperature, same color as part of the bow, it's not going to let me subtract that. That's okay. We have other options for that. So that's one option for a selection tool. And again, we can then take that and we can move that off. But we don't want to do that because what's the point? That's just silly. So we're going to Control Z and deselect all that. Control D or Command D will deselect anything you have going on. And you can do that again. You can do a quick selection. And with that little arrow button there, hold it down. Instead of the magic wand tool, go to quick selection. And this you can just start coloring on it. Coloring, just tapping in the areas that you want to select. And it'll start selecting them. And then you can come over here and see the plus sign and the minus sign. You can start deselecting some of those areas that you don't want. And it'll start pulling in there. Tiny little area there. But again, it's not exact. So sometimes you have to really get in here and you can start and see how it's got all these tiny boxes. It's really pixelated. That's okay. That's okay. So we're going to go back out here and select and then select some of those areas again, and you can use this tool to get in there and try to get really as close as you can. You can change the size here of the brush that you're using to select and deselect so that maybe you can get in even better and more detailed in there on those pixels. So that's just another selection tool. We'll use the hand here, double click, go back out, and Control D to deselect everything. This is another selection type of tool here, which I think I skipped over. Sorry, the lasso tool. And the lasso tool, once again, I'm going to zoom in, grab that lasso, and this is just you circle what you want. It doesn't cling to anything. It is what it is. You just circle the area that you're wanting to select. Then you have the polygonal tool, which is the same thing, only you're going to outline. You're going to click and then start outlining, clicking as you go and outlining the area that you're trying to select. This tool, when you're wanting more detail, it does let you get a lot more detailed. It is very time consuming though to do it like this. You can kind of, go more straight lines. So if you're working with, let's do like this. See, this is does a little bit better job at maybe doing something that's more straight lined, not so rounded and curvy. So that's just another selection tool. We've already done this one. This is a dropper tool, which I'm not on anything that allows me to do that, so we're going to skip over that. The brushing tool, brushes allow you to color, if you want to do that, or the main thing I use them for is when I use my actions, and when I use, when I have masks on, then I can use the masks and use color to control how much of the mask is showing and all that on there. So that's a really handy tool too. Cloning tool is also super duper handy. Basically, you can use the cloning tool to clone anything from your image. So you're going to choose your cloning tool over here. You're going to use your option button to pick up where you want to start cloning, to kind of pick up the imprint, I guess you'd say, and then just put it where you want it and start brushing, and it'll start brushing. You can kind of see it running over her body right now to clone anything that I just brushed over. And so now there's two of her there because I've just cloned her using the cloning brush. So we can just Control Z back out of that. Here we go. Deselect. And we're back to normal. Running out of time here. Only got about 4 minutes left. So this is an erase button. If you're drawing or need an erase, don't typically use that in editing. Don't use the paint can in the editing either. Sometimes you can use this is where you can type out words. Don't typically use that in Photoshop because I don't normally put words on images. But if I was going to, that's something that you could use. Let me go grab this and delete it. There we go. If you wanted to write, or if you wanted to create shapes, you could do so using the pen tool. Okay. This is another selection tool. Once you have a selection, say like drawing this shape here, then I'm going to use the black arrow button to use and click on these shapes here. These bullets are these buttons. That's how you would, and then you can kind of double click them, and that's how this particular arrow is what is used on things like that. This is a shapes button. Let you just draw shapes and fill them in. Again, this hand here is, if I'm zoomed in, boop, and I want to quickly go out to full screen of my image again, I double tap that. There's also rotating. You can rotate it using that same tool. And then there's the zoom button. Double tap will just give you a quick zoom. And the three buttons right here give you a whole bunch of other options that you can use. Not a whole lot of those. I would use maybe the crop tool for cropping, but I typically do my cropping in Lightroom. Maybe the blur, maybe the smudge, dodge, burn, but we can go over those another time. They're not something I use all the time. So, and then this is your brush color, and you want to keep it black and white for when you're using masks, but you can use other colors in there if you want to get artistic and paint other areas in there. So that's the basic tools right here that I use, and I'm just about out of time. So think of any questions that you have from those, and we can address those when you're ready. Thanks.